Nakalima ano, mga tinatabing
Our Heavenly Father, the fount of all goodness and grace, the cause of wisdom, the source of intelligence, we welcome you, O Lord, to this auspicious gathering of your beloved, who continuously give you thanks for every opportunity to learn something new and become fruitful to the works of your creation. We humbly come to you, not because we are worthy, but because we find ourselves in need of you, who is our strength and our hope, to continue despite the challenges we face in health, prosperity, and our solidarity with one another. We pray that today's gathering, made possible by the grace of advancements in technology and social media, becomes successful in its endeavors, so we can offer it back to you as our humble offering to honor you, glorify you, and love you through our deeper connection with everyone. May we find bliss in today's session and become more productive children and co-creators of the earth. This we ask and pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, ewas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong bangaw, ay hinagang tula, kawin sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walang pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya ng pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Acknowledge the law school deans, registrars, together with the College of Law secretaries and or their representatives gathered this afternoon. Also here with us today are the following esteemed personalities and representatives of our valued organization that are gracing us of their presence. We also acknowledge the chairperson as well as the commissioners of the Legal Education Board. Chairperson Ana Marie Melanie B. Trinidad, Commissioner Lorenzo Reyes, Commissioner Josefa Serrera T, Commissioner Salex E. Alebogha, and Commissioner Alexander D. Dumpa. Before we begin with our consultation, we would like to remind everyone that this consultative meeting with law school registrars exclusively for NCR legal education institutions is being recorded under our Media and Communications Unit. We also would like to remind our participants with our usual house rules. Number 1, we advise everyone to kindly turn on their videos in the whole duration of the consultative meeting and unmute your microphone when it's time to speak up. Number 2, all participants are requested to rename themselves in this format. Initial name of the law school, _ first name.
Participants also enjoin to always observe order and courtesy. If you have any questions, you may park them first, as it will be entertained during our open forum later. Finally, we also ask everyone to kindly stay present and stay participative during this consultative meeting.
And to formally open this afternoon's NCR consultative meeting with us law school registrars, let's click the heart emoticon in our Zoom as we personally hear the welcome remarks from one of the commissioners of the Legal Education Board, Honorable Salex Espinosa Aliboca.
Thank you, Margaret. My greetings of respect and courtesy to all our esteemed and dedicated registrars of legal education institutions in the National Capital Region. Good afternoon and welcome to our last leg of consultative meeting with the Legal Education Board. The Legal Education Board recognizes the crucial and indispensable role performed by the school registrars in maintaining proper documentation, recording and reporting of all the records and reports of the legal education institution. This initiative this afternoon resonates Legal Education Board recognition of your important role. The role of school registrars is no longer that of mere record keeper. It has evolved from keeping and safeguarding of student records to data analysis and management of the records, which are essential ingredients in school planning and decision-making. Registrars are considered multi-purpose Indians in complying with reportorial requirements of the standards in compliance from admission to graduation of law graduates, even doing some retracer study of its alumni. We appreciate registrars' function with grace and courtesy, honesty, transparency, and integrity, especially if there are some perceived manipulation of documents and records. The registrar assists in the formulation, evaluation, revision, and enforcement of policies and objectives, school calendar, schedules, curricular programs, and standard compliance with the requirements of the Legal Education Board. You enforce government and school regulations regarding all of these quintessential ingredients of documentation. The demand for quality service calls for accuracy and timeliness in the release of information and records from the registrar. May all of you who have been called to this noble profession of being registrars of legal education institution continue to strengthen legal education reforms and ensure that these reforms serve our law students better. I appreciate your efforts in finding time this afternoon to attend this important consultative meeting with the Legal Education Board. May this discourse be productive and fulfilling as you clarify matters pertinent to documentary requirements of the Legal Education Board. Lastly, let me quote one of the pearls of wisdom of one of the founding fathers of the United States of America, Benjamin Franklin, and I quote, "Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning." May this quote set the direction for our activity this afternoon. Thank you very much, and may God richly bless you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Salex, for taking the time to inspire and remind us the important role of our law school registrars, as well as our College of Law secretaries, despite the time difference there in Germany at this moment. Good luck on your study tour on social laws and policies for disability inclusion and human rights of the elderly, as well as for our beloved chairperson and the head of the Standard Development and Regulatory Office. These are something we look forward for in this year and moving forward.
Now, may I call on the Chief Operating Officer of the Legal Education Board to present and discuss the compliance calendar, as well as to refresh us with the application process, compliance process, as well as the pertinent policies related to the Legal Education Board.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aaron from the Legal Education Board, and it's my role today to discuss about our compliance calendar, uh, discuss a little about the compliance process for our different transactions, and hopefully guide you to enable your school to comply correctly with all of the different LEB transactions and repertoire requirements. Now, it's important to take note that the Legal Education Board has generally two aspects to its compliance system. On the one hand, you have the repertoire requirements that the LEB requires of schools. This pertain to information and data that schools report to us for the LEB to be able to understand better the legal education system and produce or develop policies that are appropriate for the needs of the sector. So that's pertaining to legal education data through the repertorial requirements. On the other hand, we also have compliances through transactions. These are different applications that schools and individuals give to the LEB. And in this process, what the LEB does is we try to check if the schools are actually compliant with the standards set in the different LEB policies. So you have transactions on one hand and reports on the other, and both comprise the compliance system that the LEB has. For this afternoon, I'll try to guide you to understand our compliance system better. Now, it's important to understand as well that currently there are various individuals involved in the legal education compliance system. It involves the BP for finance and administration, usually for our tuition fee increases, for example, the law dean for curricular concerns, and the law registrar for other data. This is the current system that we have now. But in the future, the LB is also considering simplifying and unifying the compliance system and using a one compliance officer system to make it easier for schools to comply. Right now, the proposal is to have law registrars as a primary compliance officer for legal education institutions. As we prepare for the new system that would use a unified compliance officer, for now, we will use the multiple officers as compliance officers depending on the nature of the concern to be complied with by the school. As you may know, the LEB has issued LEB Memorandum Circular number 138. This will be our guide this afternoon so that you'll understand how best to comply with the different reports and transactions of the LEB. Next slide, please. So, let's dive in. As you can see in LEB MC 138, there are different matters to be complied with depending on whether it's a transaction or a report of the legal education institution. On your screen, you would see a matrix of these different matters for the LEB, for the LEI to comply with. First would be the tuition and other school fee increases. On the first two columns, you will see the matter and different documents required for this particular transaction. And in the middle part, the middle columns, you will see the dates when these documents are due. It's important to note that the deadline of compliance will depend on the start date of your academic year. If, for example, you start in June, then sometime in February, you should already have concluded all of your consultations for your tuition and other school fee increases. This changes if you started your year in July, August, September, and so on and so forth. Consult LEB MC 138 for the complete details. Finally, the LEB MC also provides the last column, who should comply, or the officer required to comply with the repertoire requirements or applications to the LEB. For the tuition and other school fee increases, this is the Office of the Vice President for Finance. Next slide would provide the different matrices for other transactions. First is the curriculum revision, which is under the Dean's office. Second, the notes of electives, which is also under the Dean's office, and the refresher course, similarly under the Dean's office. These three matters, curriculum revision, electives, and refresher course, are related to the curricular design or program design of the school, and thus currently are under the compliance of the Dean's office. However, for data that are readily available or should be managed by the school at large and the College of Law in particular, the law registrar is the compliance officer for the other things. For example, the list of graduates of the institution, the academic calendar of the institution, as well as the Law School Information Report or LSIR for all semesters, which should also be complied with by the law registrar. A special transaction is the government authority to operate law program application, which is also similar to the branch application and opening of extension application. This special application is reserved for the office of the president. But this afternoon, I don't think it will apply to you. So please consult LebMC 138 for the complete list and matrix of different transactions and when they are expected to be complied with. And finally, who is the current compliance officer for them. First, let's discuss the tuition and other school fee increases application. This is one of the most important applications that the school can comply with in the LEB. And LEBMO number 8 provides the guidelines for the tuition and other school fee increases. For this discussion, I'll use the short form of the whole application, which is TOSFI or TOSFI, or tuition and other school fee increases. Now for TOSFI, it's important to understand that all schools have the discretion to increase and determine how much the increase should be to be able to afford or support their operations. So the amount of other school fees or tuition fees and how it will be increased, how much it will be increased rather, will really depend on the discretion of the school. That being said, the entire process involved in LEBMO number 8 or TOSFI application really is just for the LEB to determine if the increase is reasonable and if the increase underwent due process of consultation. So if you visit LEBMO number 8, in particular, you will see that these principles are enshrined there. Next slide, please. In terms of reasonability, LEBMO number 8 also provides a set of guidelines for the school to consider in determining and computing how much the increase can be made in a reasonable sense. Next slide, please. And finally, LEBMO number 8 also provides the list of requirements for schools to prepare for so that they be able to increase their tuition, their TOS fee. Now, it's very important to also note that on the side of LEB, these requirements really will allow us to see evidence of due process conducted. So if the evidence as you submitted is incomplete, then the LEB will not be able to paint a complete picture and determine whether or not the school really did involve a very due process, a very transparent and reasonable consultation process. So the school only has to comply with these requirements to be able to implement their TOS fee. It's also important to note, next slide please, that not all documentary requirements are required of all schools. It will depend on what year level is affected. For example, if your application only covers incoming first year, then that's a very short list of requirements. But if it affects all year levels, then that will require all of the possible requirements. It's also different between private schools and state universities and colleges. So we encourage our schools to check and verify LEBMO number 8 for the applicable requirements to them. Under LEBMC 138, it will be the Office of the Vice President for Finance and Administration or similar positions in your school who will have to comply with these requirements within the due date stated to be able to apply TOS fee in your institution. Now let's go to curriculum revision. Under LEB MC 138, this will fall under the compliance obligations of the Office of the Dean of the Law School. LEB MC number 138 also provides for when the due date of curriculum revision and notes of electives is required of our deans or our law office of the deans. I understand that schools may have different schedules on when they are able to fully revise their curriculum, but it's important to note that there should be ample time for the LEB to review your applications for curriculum revision or notes of electives, and this would entail that you comply, the schools comply within a limited set of time. So for example, if you will be starting your school year in June, then your application should reach us at the latest on April 30th of the year. And it will change definitely if your school year starts in July, August, or September. But again, the crux of it is that there should be ample time for the LEB to review your curriculum revision or your notes of electives. It's also very important to emphasize that under LEB Memorandum Number 24 or the Revised Model Law Curriculum, the schools have been given quite a big range of freedoms to be able to design the curriculum the way that they deem it best for their design in school. And we encourage all schools to revisit LEBMO rather, number 24 and the RMLC. It provides a wealth of discussion in terms of how the LEB wishes to see a revised way of teaching the law. You can play with the electives, you can develop your own academic tracks, as long as the mandatory aspects of the curriculum, which are the minimum standards of the curriculum, are met. CLEP can also be redesigned in a way that you deem best for your school. Next slide, please. This really relates to different enhancements as the school can make in order to design the model law curriculum that is best suited to their needs. Now, regardless of the design that schools would wish to pursue, the schools are to be reminded that this freedom should be exercised reasonably. Next slide, please. Additionally, if you are finding some trouble in terms of crediting of subjects between old students or students of the old curriculum and the new curriculum, the RMLC also provides, during this transition period, quite large latitude for schools to manage the transition. But we have expressed some guidelines so that may guide your school in the crediting of subjects. So essentially, if a student involved is a transferee, then it is really the discretion of the accepting school how it will credit and appreciate the subjects that the students have earned in their previous schools. So if the accepting institution feels that the student is qualified to take the new curriculum and finish the curriculum finish the degree using the new curriculum, then that is the call of the school. Returning students also usually are managed by the school by first understanding whether the returning students can still finish their studies using the old curriculum. But if this is impossible to do, then the school also has the prerogative to require the returning student, to take the new courses. Again, this is really part of that wide array of tools available to the school under the mantle of academic freedom in determining how best to accept and who to accept and how best to teach that student to be able to graduate a degree from their school. And this process will just simply require a Form P, which is available on our website for schools to use for them to apply for model law, for the curriculum revision. The motivation really behind Form P is to ensure that the LEB is aware of all of the aspects of your curriculum. It's also important to note that the curriculum is not just a schedule or the outline, but it also involves the description of the different courses that you will be giving. It also involves the schedule of courses that you will be giving. And finally, it also involves other pedagogical elements that are integral to the approach that the school will have in terms of its curriculum. Now let's go to refresher courses. Refresher courses is available or outlined under LEBMO number 3. So please, if you have the time, consult LEBMO number 3 for the full details. Next slide, please. Under the LEBMC 138 or the compliance calendar, this is also under the Dean's office and should be complied with roughly the same time as the curriculum revision applications of your school. This will also give ample time for the LEB to review your application before the start of the next academic year. Under LEBMO number 3, there are very few requirements for a school to be able to offer a refresher course. Please check section number 5 of LEBMO number 3. Now, it's important that you will be able to, the school will be able to outline these requirements in the form that is used for this application. Otherwise, if your application form is not complete or has missing data, then we will not be able to fully process your application. Next slide, please. The application form is on our website, and it is Form D. It essentially outlines the requirements of the school, requirements of LEBMO number 3 from the school. If you are approved, then you'll be able to will be issued a certificate of government authority to operate the refresher course. Now let's move on to what we referred to in the past as the Legal Education Board Certification or LEBC. This is no longer continued, and you would be able to see the updated guidelines in particular or pertaining to LEBC under LEBMC number 114. Now it's referred to, next slide please, as the list of graduates. So the list of graduates is also required from schools, and this is now under the law school registrar. So the law school registrar should be able to comply with the list of graduates depending again on the start of the academic year. If it's June, if you started your school year in June last year, then April 30th this year should be the deadline for all of your list of graduates. Next slide please. Further context to this is that in the past it was called the LEBC because schools required a LEB certification that certifies their graduates as have graduated for these students to take the bar examinations. However, this was discontinued as a result of the pronouncements of the Supreme Court pertaining to LEBC. And therefore, now, schools are no longer required to submit a LEBC application, but they still are required to submit a list of graduates for the public record. This list of graduates, next slide please, is submitted using a template that we have provided to you that basically just outlines information about the graduates. Next slide please. And you are simply going to fill out this list of graduates form and file this with the Legal Education Board to comply with the requirement. Aside from that list, one major report that we require of schools is the Law School Information Report or the LSIR. So we only require an LSIR form that is fully filled out for this requirement. Next slide please. This is also to be complied with by the law school registrar, who hopefully has the information, all the information required in the report. There are two usual LSIRs in a year, the first semester and the second semester LSIR. If you have a summer term or a special term, then that also requires its own LSIR. So the date of compliance for this is August 1 for the first semester if you started in June, and November 2 if you started in September. For the second semester LSIR, the deadline is early next year. If you started in June, again, that's about January 1st of this new year, or April 1st, 2024 if you started in September this school year. For both LSIRs, it's still the law school registrar who will file the report. Next slide, please. And finally, the academic school calendar. The academic school calendar guidelines is outlined in LEMO number 10. And in LEMO number 10, it provides for the basic parameters on how an academic school calendar or an academic school calendar period should be designed. So please visit LEMO number 10 for the details. Next slide, please. It's also the law school registrar who needs to comply with this academic calendar and submit that academic calendar on the due date depending on the start of the academic year. Now, before we conclude the discussion on the different compliances of the school, it's important to reiterate that there continues to be schools who find it difficult to comply with our various transactions or reportorial requirements. We understand that there are various reasons to this challenge. This initiative, which is a consultative meeting with our law registrars, is one of the tools that we are using to be able to help schools to comply better. Please make sure that you are updated with the different issuances of the LEB and always consult our academic calendar compliance, our school calendar compliance to understand better how best to comply with the requirements of the LEB. If you have any other concern with the compliances and the reportorial requirements, our officers also always welcome an opportunity to talk and dialogue with you so that we are able to help you with your concerns. And now this afternoon, it will also be my opportunity for me to discuss a LEB policy that some schools may have questions on, and this opportunity will be that platform for me to discuss it further. So the LEB policy that I would like to share to you today more on about, next slide please, is the regulation of the conferment of honorary law degrees in legal education. So the LEB issued LEBMO number 25, which outlines the discussion on the fact that the conferment of honorary Doctor of Laws degrees is already deregulated. Next slide, please. Essentially, what this means is that all duly accredited LEIs may already grant honorary doctorate degrees, Doctor of Laws degrees, to persons of integrity and other parameters, but should be done reasonably. So under level 25, all others, we encourage that the grantees of honorary degrees should be eminent individuals with integrity who have distinguished themselves in the field of law, justice, administration, governance, leadership, or public service through outstanding work and or exemplary service to society. And so, as long as the school judiciously exercises this power, we encourage all schools to consider their own decision making in conferring the honorary Doctor of Laws degrees. This means that you no longer have to apply with the LEB for you to confer an honorary Doctor of Laws degrees. You may still inform us of your activities, but these are not prerequisites for your grant. So that's it. If you have questions, we have an open forum later today for these concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Attorney Aaron for that incisive discussions on the compliance calendar, the application process, the compliance process, as well as refreshing us with the policies of the Legal Education Board. I'm pretty sure our participants right now have their questions all set, but before that, we still have our 15-minute coffee break. You may chat ahead your questions in the Zoom chat box, so not to forget it. Time check, it is now 2:05. Please be back at 2:20 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope everyone had their quick coffee break. Thank you again for gracing us your time this afternoon's consultative meeting with law school registrars. Just a quick recap earlier, the Chief Operating Officer of the Legal Education Board, Attorney Aaron Mark Misa Di Maano, presented and discussed the compliance calendar, application and compliance processes, as well as refresh us with the policy of the Legal Education Board. It is an elementary rule to really know that the legal education institutions may set to commence their school calendars not earlier than the last week of May, but not later than the last day of August. Also, the compliance officer would include now the law school registrar, specifically for submission of the academic calendar, as well as the law school information report, prior the start of their academic year. Finally, the grant on honorary degrees lies now to all duly accredited legal education institutions in accordance to the academic freedom. Legal education institutions may now judiciously exercise recognition of eminent individuals of integrity who have distinguished themselves in the field of law, justice, administration, governance, leadership, or public service through outstanding work and their exemplary service to society.
At this juncture, we are entertaining comments, suggestions, clarifications, and/or questions for our open forum. The senior staff of the Quality Assurance and Accreditation Unit, Ms. Annie May Baldago, will answer most of the queries in our open forum, together with the Chief Operating Officer of the Legal Education Board, Attorney Aaron Mark Misa Di Maano. You may use the raise hand feature on Zoom feature. You may use your raise hand button feature in Zoom, or you may use the Zoom chat box for your questions, clarifications, and or comments or queries.
We have our first question. I think Miss Annie will answer this one. Hi, Miss Annie. So the first question is, what will happen to us if we cannot meet the set days of notice for school application or compliance set on your compliance calendar timeline? Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. As for that question, as what has been discussed earlier by Attorney Aaron Mark Di Maano, the main purpose of this consultative meeting is really to encourage the law schools to apply on time or before the indicated deadline in the lead memorandum circular number 138, because delayed applications can sometimes implicates for denial of their application. So we highly recommend for the submission of the requirements of the law schools to be on time. Thank you.
Moving on with our next question, how many copies of the requirements do we secure for the increased impositions on tuition application do we need to submit?
As for the submission for the TOSP application, the submission of 1 copy per listed requirements in the LEBMO number 8 already suffice your application for the tuition and other school fee increase. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Annie. We have a private message from our Zoom chat box. One of the challenge in their law school is that our registrar is shared with other colleges, meaning they are also assigned in other college and not solely focused on School of Law. Is there a possibility that LEB will issue a similar guidelines for law registrar as of that of LEBMO number 26 for law librarians? Attorney A?
Thank you, Rox. So we understand that schools don't necessarily have separate registrars for the law program. So currently, your university registrar can also be the law registrar, or in cases of schools with multiple assistant registrars, your assistant registrars for a cluster of courses, including law, is well accepted. The ideal, however, is that universities or schools should have their separate law registrar because of the separate set of requirements and rules and guidelines particular to law. So that is ideal, but not necessarily required at this moment. However, moving forward, the LEB is definitely considering the development of guidelines to possibly establish having law registrars in different law schools in the country to strengthen the compliance of our schools and also to improve legal education overall. I hope that is helpful. Thank you.
For our next question, this goes to Ma'am Annie. How does the requirement enlisting the student council officers be a relevant requirement for the tuition and school fee increase?
Thank you, Marga. Just like what has been discussed by Attorney Aaron earlier, the purpose of which is to ensure that the students are well informed regarding the increase of their tuition and other school fees and how much will be released and to make sure the just implementation of their school fees. Thank you.
We have another clarification here. I would like to be clarified that expanding the unit weight under the revised model law curriculum needs to be consulted to LEB as well. LEB as well as needed to be approved prior implementing, right? Ms. Annie?
Well, just like what has been discussed by Attorney Aaron earlier, the good thing about the LEB Memorandum number 24 is that it respects the rights of the law schools for academic freedom. Hence, it is really within the discretion of the law school management if the school wants to expand the minimum total number of units indicated in the LEB number 24. But an application of the amendment of the curriculum is still required for the approval of the LEB board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Annie. This question goes to Attorney A. For the Law School Information Report or LSIR submission dates, in the memo, it's 45 days after the first day of classes. However, in the presentation, it is set on September 1 for school starting in August, while March 1 for February. Which one should we follow, the memo or the newly presented dates earlier? Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. So just to be clear, the controlling guideline in terms of deadline of compliance for our different requirements is LEB MC 138. So the purpose precisely of having a circular consolidating all of these deadlines and due dates is to assist our schools in complying with them. So the controlling rule or guideline would be LEB MC 138, including on the LSIR. But I think I need to clarify based on the question, Margaret, because when you look at the circular right now, if your school starts in August, the deadline for the first semester LSIR is not September, but October 1st. So if you look at the LEB MC, the reckoning point for when your academic year will start is presented at the very top in the heading. So you will see there's the if June, if July, if August, if September, 4 different columns under the second cluster of columns. So this is when you will base this is where you will look at depending on what your starting month is for the academic year. And then you will go down along the appropriate column and comparing it to the leftmost column to determine what kind of matter or concern you are dealing with. So if it's the first semester LSIR, it's actually on October 1st, 2023, if you are starting in August, so not September 1. Take note, even as I mentioned that LEB MC 138 is a controlling rule, it also takes in consideration what is written in our other LEB MOs and LEB MCs, because the reason why it is October 1st for school starting in August is because that would be more than 45 days. October 1st would be more than 45 days
from the start of classes in August. So what we're doing actually is we're providing a more liberal period for schools to comply, and so that schools don't have to count specifically how many days it has been since they start. So for their convenience, for the convenience of schools, you can just determine when you started, if it's June, and then you determine and you already have the due date. So if it's June, your classes start in June, then you just have to file your LSIR, first semester LSIR on August 1st, regardless of the date in June when you started. So if you started in July, you submit by September 1st, if August, October 1st, and then if September, November 2nd. So the same concept applies for second semester LSIR. The difference is that the due date would happen or would fall next year, either in January, February, March, or April. So please take a look at LevMC 138. It's been designed to make it more convenient on your end. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Aaron, for the clarification regarding the submission of LSIR. We have a question regarding refresher courses, offering refresher courses. What is our remedy if we do not meet the passing rate for the first-time examinees? Miss Annie? The main purpose of the LEBMO number 3 is to ensure po the quality of the refresher courses offered for the graduates of the law program. Thus, law schools are required to attain at least 10% passing rate for the past 3 consecutive bar examinations to be able to have the authority to offer refresher courses and to be approved by the LEB board. Thank you.
Next question, Ma'am Annie, is the process for CAV. Can these be hand carried by the student who requested for it going to the Legal Education Board main office?
We would like to advise everyone po that the application of the CAV includes the physical submission of the listed requirements of the CAV, to which you may also see in our LEB website. So we won't be able to release po the approved CAV without the submission of the physical documents. Thank you.
Regarding CAV return, we currently have a CAV document for pickup. Unfortunately, we have not included a return pocket. Can we send another mail with a pocket money on it?
As much as possible po, no, the LEB encourages everyone to send at least a prepaid pouch po rather than sending money to the office. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Annie. We have we have a question regarding the list of graduates. Can it be sent online? Law schools may do both po, no? They may send it online via our official email address, which is contact@leb.gov.ph. And they may also submit such physical documents or copies at our LEB office at along CP Garcia of Diliman, Quezon City. Thank you.
Form P for RMLC application has a portion requiring the listing of electives to be offered under RMLC. Would this be compliance already of the notice of electives requirement?
As for the electives naman, this pertains to the optional courses and those taken for academics and academic tracks for everyone's information. The electives in the Form P is also considered po as part na of the compliance of the law schools with the notice of electives. But if in any case a law school wants to provide additional or to amend their list of electives, they shall submit a written report po to the LEB within 30 days before the start of the academic year regarding their list or the electives that they will be offered, the number of units per electives, and when will this be offered, kung anong academic year siya. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Annie. Another question, consultation requirement only applies to school fees adjustment and not for curriculum adjustment anymore? Technically, yes. We're only requiring po a consultation for the tuition and other school fee increase lang.
This question is for Attorney A. For the list of graduates submitted on or before the deadline, can an institution still submit an updated list after the deadline in case additional students deemed graduates?
Thank you, Margaret. The short answer is yes. You may submit a list of graduates. You may submit another list of graduates to reflect the additional persons that have graduated since you submitted your first report. The better practice, and we encourage schools to do this, is to resubmit a more or an added, to resubmit the list including the added graduates, and declaring in your submission that you are canceling your first submission. The reason for this is that to make it on record that there's only really one list, instead of submitting an additional list containing only the additional graduates. Okay, so let me reiterate that if you're going to submit the list of graduates on your schedule, and then you have additional graduates afterwards, the better approach is to resubmit a new list, including the added graduates, and declaring or stating in your application that you're canceling or revoking your earlier list of graduates for the reason that you have added graduates. So this is better and clearer on our end when we update our records. That being said, we do encourage that schools graduate their students amply before they start their new school year. So for example, if the school year is in June, we believe that all graduates should have completed their requirements by April, a month before the start of the next school year. So that's a better practice overall. But nonetheless, if there are instances where this question is relevant, then my advice would be that. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney A, for that answer.
In the submission of reportorial requirements to LEB, I would like to ask some clarifications if the LEI is required to submit a hard copy to LEB's main office, or the soft copy through LEB online will suffice. Again, I repeat the question. In the submission of the reportorial requirements to LEB, I would like to ask some clarifications. If the LEI is required to submit a hard copy to LEB's main office, or the soft copy through LEB online will suffice. Miss Annie? Again, law schools po may do both. They can send it via online at our official email address at contact@leb.gov.ph, and they may also submit the physical copies at our lab office at Diliman, Quezon City. Thank you.
We're down to our last question. Did I understand it right that if our school has no plans of adjusting fees, we need not comply with the tuition application?
To answer it shortly, yes. TOS fee applications only applies to those law schools who aims to have an increase to their tuition and other school fees. If the school does not want to increase their tuition or other school fees, they're not required to provide us an application. Thank you.
All right, one last question. May pahabol na question for the list of graduates. When can we submit the official list of graduates if the submission is earlier than the actual release of grades of the graduating students? Because obviously the list will only be indicative by then.
So thank you for the question, Margaret. We do have a concern if during the deadline that we have set in MC, the grades are not yet still in for your graduates. Because if you look at, as I mentioned earlier, if you look at the LEB MC, the deadline set for the list of graduates is a month before your next school year starts. So for example, if you will start in June, then all of your graduates should have been declared from the previous school year, should have been declared at the latest April 30. The same in the same sense, if you're starting in July, then May 31st, all of your graduates from the previous school year should already been declared. If you're starting in August, June 30th, dapat po lahat na ng graduate nung last academic year na declare na. And similarly, kung September kayo magsisimula, dapat lahat ng graduates nung nakaraang school year should have been declared by July 31st. So that's how the compliance is designed. So in looking forward, if you started in June, then a year after, in April 30 the next year, all of your graduates for that current academic year should have been declared. And you only have just a month before the new school year, your new school year is opened. Which means that based on best practice, we do not expect graduation to happen within a month before the new school year begins. So that's why our expectation, when you already submit your list of graduates, you wait until close to the deadline to have all of these graduates declared on your report. So it's no longer indicative, it is already factual and accurate. I mentioned that if there are instances, for whatever reason, that you had a student exceptionally finishing the degree past the official graduation date, days before the new school year starts, and the new school year starts, and the institution allows it. In those exceptional instances, it's all right to submit an updated list of graduates. But at every time that you submit a list of graduates, please submit the list of names that have actually graduated. So it's no longer an indicative list, but the list of actually graduated persons. It might seem, conceptually, it might seem a big task, but please remember that the design of the LEB-MC is that you're given until 1 month before your new school year starts to declare the students who graduated from the previous school year. And we believe that is quite a reasonable and logical time frame for us to get all of the list of names of students who did graduate. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Aaron and Miss Annie, for answering our questions, and for the clarifications as well.
At this point, we would like to request everyone to turn on their videos because every event like this ends with a group pic for our documentation. So we'd love to capture your beautiful smiles this afternoon. And as we wait for the other people to, turn on their videos, we would like to thank you for your presence this afternoon. Our tech team will help us document our event this afternoon. And let's just wait for University of Southern Mindanao, who joined us also this afternoon. UANP, LPU. All right, so I think they're all set. We have 2 frames. I just want to please hold your smile for like a few seconds. All right, let's start with frame 1. Ready, set, 1, 2, 3. All right, let's move on to our next screen. Set, 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you, tech team, for assisting us this afternoon. And this has been Margaret Castro of the Legal Education Board.
And Roxanne Palya from Legal Education Board. See you around and stay safe.